In the quiet neighborhoods of Wichita, Kansas, a predator lurked for nearly 3 decades. Dennis Lynn Rader, who would later become infamous as the BTK killer, was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas. His childhood appeared unremarkable on the surface, though he would later admit to early fascinations with torture and control. Growing up in the 1950s and 1960s in Wichita, Rader developed what true crime author Harold Schechter described as a profound disconnect between his inner world of violent fantasy and the conventional exterior he presented to others. After graduating from high school, Rader joined the U.S. Air Force, serving from 1966 to 1970. Upon his return to civilian life, he found employment with a camping equipment company, attended college classes, and in 1971, married Paula Dietz. To neighbors and colleagues, Rader embodied the quintessential American family man, a husband, father of 2 children, churchgoer, and active community member. He worked various jobs throughout his life, including positions at ADT Security Services as a census taker, and eventually as a compliance officer for Park City, Kansas. Criminologist Scott Bond noted that Rader's ability to compartmentalize his life was extraordinary, even by the standards of organized serial killers. The horror began on January 15, 1974, when Rader entered the home of the Otero family. Joseph and Julie Otero and 2 of their children, Josephine and Joseph II, were found bound and strangled. The meticulous nature of the crime shocked investigators. Forensic psychologist Catherine Ramsland, who would later correspond extensively with Rader for her book Confession of a Serial Killer, observed that, from the very beginning, Rader's crimes demonstrated a level of planning and control that distinguished him from impulsive offenders. 9 months after the Otero murders, Catherine Bright became Rader's next victim, though her brother Kevin survived the attack. Then, in what would become a signature aspect of his crimes, Rader began communicating with the media. In October 1974, he placed a letter in a public library book describing the Otero murders in detail that only the killer could know. The letter was eventually discovered and turned over to the police. In this communication, Rader first referred to himself as BTK. Bind, torture, kill, the methodology he employed with his victims. After a 3-year hiatus, Rader resumed his killing in March 1977 with the murder of Shirley Vian and, in December of the same year, Nancy Fox. Following each crime, Rader continued his pattern of communication, sending letters to local newspapers and television stations, taunting authorities with details of his crimes and hints about his identity. Former FBI profiler John Douglas, who developed many of the techniques used in criminal profiling, noted that BTK represented a particularly dangerous type of killer, one who derived pleasure not just from the act of murder itself, but from the fear he generated in the community and the attention he received from law enforcement. The investigation stalled as years passed without an arrest. Meanwhile, Rader continued his seemingly normal life, even rising to the position of president of his church congregation. In April 1985, Rader killed his neighbor, Maureen Hedge, who lived just 6 doors down from his own home. The following year, Vicki Wegeler became his victim, and in 1991, Dolores Davis was murdered. After the Davis killing, BTK went silent for over a decade. The case might have remained unsolved had Rader not resumed communication with the media in 2004, apparently motivated by a newspaper article commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders. This renewed correspondence proved to be his undoing. In February 2005, Rader sent a floppy disk to a local television station. Digital forensic analysis revealed metadata linking the disk to Christ Lutheran Church and a user named Dennis. This crucial piece of evidence led investigators to Dennis Rader. On February 25, 2005, Rader was arrested while driving near his home. The shocking revelation that the feared BTK killer was a compliance officer, scout leader, and church president sent shockwaves through the community. Criminal psychologist Robert Hare, renowned for his work on psychopathy, observed that Rader exemplifies the psychopath's ability to create a mask of sanity, a convincing facade that allows them to operate undetected within society. During interrogation, Rader confessed to the 10 murders with disturbing candor and an almost clinical detachment. He described how he selected his victims, whom he called projects, through a process he termed trolling. Rader revealed elaborate fantasies and preparation rituals, including bringing what he called hit kits, containing the tools he would use to bind and kill his victims. Perhaps most disturbing was Rader's explanation of how he compartmentalized his murderous activities from his family and community life. He created detailed journals, drawings, and memorabilia from his crimes, which he kept hidden in secure locations. Rader called his homicidal urges Factor X, a term he used to separate his violent impulses from his everyday persona. At his trial in August 2005, Rader pleaded guilty to all charges. The court proceedings revealed the full extent of his methodical cruelty. In a move that stunned even seasoned legal observers, Rader delivered a lengthy statement describing his crimes in dispassionate detail. Judge Gregory Waller sentenced him to 10 consecutive life terms, with a minimum of 175 years before eligibility for parole. Since his incarceration at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas, Rader has participated in numerous interviews and corresponded with researchers and journalists. Dr. Catherine Ramsland spent years communicating with Rader for her definitive study of his psychology. What makes Rader unique among serial killers, Ramsland observed, is his methodical compartmentalization. He maintained the appearance of normalcy while harboring violent fantasies and acting on them. The BTK case transformed approaches to serial murder investigations and highlighted the psychological complexity of predators who maintain dual lives. Criminologist Jack Levin noted that Rader defied the stereotypical profile of the loner serial killer. His deep integration into community life allowed him to avoid suspicion for decades. For the families of his victims and the community of Wichita, the resolution of the case brought closure, but also disturbing questions about how well we truly know those around us. As former Wichita Police Lieutenant Ken Landwehr, who led the BTK task force, reflected, the most frightening aspect of Rader was his ordinariness. He wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was hiding in plain sight. Today, Dennis Rader remains in solitary confinement, separated from other inmates due to the notoriety of his crimes. His case continues to be studied by criminologists, psychologists, and law enforcement professionals seeking to understand the complex psychology of organized serial killers, and to develop better methods for identifying and apprehending such offenders before they claim multiple victims. The legacy of the BTK investigation also includes important advances in forensic technology and investigation techniques. The use of digital forensics to identify Rader through metadata on a floppy disk demonstrated how new technologies could be leveraged in solving even long, cold cases. For a killer who prided himself on his methodical evasion of law enforcement, it was ultimately his own arrogance and the advance of technology that brought about his capture. proving that even the most careful predators eventually make mistakes that lead to their undoing.